What's up, Sushi Squad? We back in some more Trove. Sorry this video was a little bit late today, but I don't know. Kind of woke up a little bit under the weather, so I kind of just took a couple hours off before I started recording stuff, and I started watching Invincible. So that was the real problem. I only got like 2 episodes in, so no spoilies, guys, but oh my god, it's a good show. So anyways, what we're going to be talking about today is, of course, on the test server, so keep everything in mind that all of these numbers are subject to change. But basically what we're going to be talking about today is the patch notes that are currently on the test server, as well as I'm going to give you guys a little bit of feedback on our experiences with the Bard. Obviously, I'm still kind of leveling him up. I only need a couple more levels and then I'll have him at level 30, and then we can actually highlight him at the end game, do some comparisons and stuff like that. You can expect all of those to come out over the following week, but today, we're just going to be focusing on the Bard. Now, I gotta let you guys know, I know it doesn't make much sense because we're on the test server, but in the odd chance that you're watching this video and you're new to Trove, or maybe you're coming back and creating a new account, you can use that sign up link down in the description, and then basically what it's going to do is anytime you buy something out of the cash shop, I make a percentage of that sale. It's an awesome way you can support me by literally just playing the game and doing stuff that you would otherwise be doing. Now, another thing, before we get into the patch notes, I'm seeing the comments so many times, you guys. We don't know when this is releasing, okay? If I had to guess, I would say they're probably trying to line up the Bard's release with the Nintendo Switch version of the game, which means that it could be anywhere from a month and onward. Who knows? You know, it's too early to tell. For those of you guys on console that haven't gotten the Chloromancer update, again, if I had to guess, they might be waiting for the Bard to be finished, and then they'll roll the Chloromancer rework update alongside the Bard on consoles. I could be wrong about that. It could just be that it's taking them an absurd amount of time to get the Chloromancer rework to you guys. So anyways, let's talk about the patch notes themselves. So finally, after 3 long years, we have a new class added to the game. And it's basically a meme class. So it's one of the best ones that we could have possibly hoped for. I still, like, my feedback on just the idea that we got a new class is I really, really hope that this becomes a trend. I hope that they just keep developing more and more classes to the game. The Bard is insanely difficult to end up crafting. It's ridiculous. But anyways, let's get into the actual patch notes themselves, guys. So, Bards weave together stylish moves and powerful songs in order to buff allies and dish out magic damage. The buff is okay. It could possibly end up being pretty good for some people that are super duper invested in like getting the absolute perfect buff team going on, but for the most part, it's not that great. Like, support classes in Trove just don't really mix, you know? Look at the Chloromancer. Bards use fist weapons to power up the strums of their loot. They have the ability to convert the physical damage of a fist weapon into magic damage, which is really, really cool. And we've talked about this many, many times where, oh my god, I wish that they would just remove both physical and magic damage stat and just have it as one coherent attack stat. It would just be so much less confusing for players. But basically what happens here is you'll see that the fist weapon shows magic damage, but if I take it off and if I swap back to Vanguard, now the fist weapon just shows physical damage. So it literally just depends on the class that you're on, whether it shows magic damage or physical damage. And that's it. So you'll be able to swap all your Vanguard gear over to the Bard very, very easy peasy. Bard can be obtained through crafting on the Chaos Crafter or one of the Bard packs. The Bard class cannot be obtained through the class coins or the Sweet 16 pack, and all players on the PTS will have the class unlocked for testing purposes. Ah, yes, testing purposes. Let me show you guys this, because if you didn't catch my stream where we ended up playing with the Bard, we kind of discovered all of this stuff like in real time. So my reactions were always like, oh my god, and then after I had a little moment to think about it, I was like, that's not that bad. But I'm going to tell you guys as a warning, okay? Like, look at the Vanguard. Vanguard's already super expensive because of the fact that it costs sentient shards, and I'm pretty sure these items cost sentient shards independently to end up crafting a bunch of different things. Vanguard is really, really ridiculous to get free to play. You guys know this already. And let me tell you, the Bard is more expensive. You ready for this? I don't think you're ready for this. Look at this. Just look at this. costs the same amount of radiant shards, which means you gotta be farming, farming the invasions or whatever the heck. Sorry. And then there's 75 Bound Brilliance, which, as far as I know, you can buy this from Luxian sometimes. I forget whether Corexian sells it too, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But this is technically a time-gated resource, which kind of sucks because you also get it off of the leaderboard, which is really, really disgusting. The only reason I have as much Bound Brilliance as I do is back in the day, there was a daily token box, right? And you could buy this token box and it would end up having a chance of dropping Bound Brilliance. So as soon as I knew that they were going to be removing those boxes from the game, I bought up like a bunch of them just because I needed to stock up on Bound Brilliance, because otherwise the way that you get Bound Brilliance now is ridiculously slow. So then it also costs 30,000 free range electrolyte crystal, which you get from delves, but oh god, it's terrible. 500 crystalline core, which you get from 5-star dungeons and the like. And then Bardium, which is a brand new resource that, get this, you know the Geode Caves? I hope you like the Geode Caves, because this is a new ore that is a 1x1 drop, meaning that if you mine one vein, or one block of it, you're going to get one block of it in your inventory. It's not like normal ore where you could mine one piece of shapestone and say get like 3 or 4. Near as I can tell, but as you can see, I've only farmed like 25, so that could be false. But this resource is tier 5 Geode Caves. It's exhausting just thinking about it. So ultimately, if you want the Bard class, you're either going to be taking months of grinding. Not to mention, I mean, at least Bardium's tradable, so I want to point that out, that this is going to end up being a really, really good resource to farm and sell for flux. That's for darn sure. But my recommendation is, if you want to play the Bard class like day one right away, there's no way to prepare for it. You're just going to have to buy one of the packs. I don't know what the cost is of each of the packs. They're not actually available on the test server right now. But if I had to guess, the smaller pack for the Bard is probably going to be 20 to 30 bucks American. And then we already know that there is going to be a big boy pack, which is going to be like $100, which is a really good value. I know that doesn't seem like it, but we'll explain why in a bit, just because there's various costumes that you can craft for the Bard that are very, very expensive, like just like this outfit right here, like it's, or just like the class. Anyways, let's talk about the class, because that's the biggest thing that you guys are interested in before we end up getting too distracted. And I'm sorry I'm prattling on, but it's been so long since we ended up having a new class to the game. So the passive ability of the Bard, Melody, is used for the Bard's abilities and is generated from the Bard song buff, which is his ult, which we'll get into in a bit. Gaining Melody rotates what ultimate the Bard has access to. Having high Melody will also increase the Bard's basic attack damage. Melody is displayed on the Bard song buff bar. So this guy is the weirdest class in the entire game. So basically right now we've got the Epic Riff, which is kind of like the starting of the melody. So we toggle this and you can see that we've got a meter slowly going down. That's what Epic Rift is building up, is this timer, right? And then during this timer, you can see these icons slowly popping up on top of my character's head, right? So if I use my number 1 ability, and then I end up using my basic attack for the strum, and then my right click attack, which we'll get into the details of all these abilities later, but you can see that I'm slowly building up stacks, right? So the way that this guy works is, as you build up more and more stacks, you're going to end up getting various buffs towards the character. But more importantly, it's going to end up slowly building up for different ultimate abilities, because he's actually got like 3 or 4 different ults. He's overly complex and I don't like it. But the higher that you have of these stacks, the more it's going to scale with like your basic attack and stuff like that, which we'll get into in a bit. But as you can see, we ran out of the timer. We ran out of the clock. So how do we keep the timer going at a point where we can end up continuously gaining more and more stacks to actually get it to full maximum potency, right? Well, if we end up getting up to every 5 stacks, basically, if I use my ult again, bomb, it's going to take 5 stacks, but it'll end up kind of cycling us back to the Epic Rift so that we can start the timer again, and so on and so forth. So you're constantly spending your stacks just to end up using your other ult to end up building your timer up again. And I'll try to see if I can get a screenshot of it, but players ended up already determining, based on color coding these, that actually, depending on which slot of the stack that you're at, will actually determine the different ultimate ability. So it's quite literally just, oh, if you're on the 6th slot for the stacks, you're going to have this ultimate ability, and then if you're 2 more up in the stacks, you'll have this ability, and so on and so forth. We'll get into what each of the buffs end up doing, but what do I think about it? I don't really like it. I feel that the implementation of this is really, really bad right now. It's okay. It's interesting that they tried to make a bard character actually focus on rhythm, you know, like where you have to use these abilities. But there's a lot of problems that come with that. You know, the abilities that you see appearing above our head, as soon as you're in the middle of battle, you can't see this anymore. So I would personally like it if we saw an icon down here somewhere, so that we didn't have to try to pay attention to it on top of our character, just because it's so unreliable up here. But on top of that, there's just frankly too many stacks, or more specifically, you build your stacks way too slow, because you get a lot of really, really good beneficial buffs from having higher stack value, as we'll explain in a moment. But it's just way too lengthy a process to end up building those stacks that it's just not really worth it. Like if I had to give feedback of the Bard versus any other characters in the game, Bard can end up being good once you end up building up all your stacks and stuff like that, but ultimately, why would you use that when you could literally just be on the Vanguard, for example, doing the same amount of damage, if not more, than the Bard, without having to build up any stacks or anything? It's, you know, maybe someone's really into it. So anyways, going into the basic attack, this already gets to our point where the Bard sends out a strum of their loot, dealing 150% of your magic damage to enemies in front of you. When the Bard has 6 melody, which is the stacks, this attack deals 300% magic damage. But if you get 11 stacks, you will actually be dealing 650% magic damage. Now, here's the crazy thing, is that if we actually build up our rifts and stuff like that, let's just set it all up. The way that it works is his ultimate ability will actually end up giving different buffs, which doesn't end up affecting the basic attack of other characters or anything. But if you'll notice here, I put down my number 1 ability, I cast my ult, and then it's actually doing an AoE around the star as well as myself, and that is actually applying a buff to me as well as comrades. And the weird thing is that it actually stacks. So we actually just had the benefit of having 2 ults at the same time. So you could see where this guy could potentially end up being pretty cracked in certain groups. It's just, again, I would argue that the amount of build-up time that you need in order to actually do all this stuff is just, I don't think casual players, or the majority of players, are going to even bother investing in all that stuff. Thankfully, you don't have to do any of that stuff if you're just trying to farm with this guy effectively. So anyways, I'm sorry I keep going on tangents. So anyways, the primary ability is Nimble Dance, which is going to be a parry attack that deals 200% damage in a cone and grants the user invulnerability bubble for 1 second. So you basically do this right in front of you. There's going to end up being, that's that damage that it said, and he literally just does like a backflip like a Neon Ninja, which is weird. And then as you can see, for the moment that we are invisible, we do not take damage. So it's, you know, it's not bad. It's kind of tanky, I guess. Personally, I would like it if it would flow better with the rest of him, because it takes a little while for him to finish the combo before he starts attacking again. It's almost a 1-by-1 ratio where we actually get invulnerability and I'm holding left click, and we don't even get to have an attack go off before we end up coming back from our invulnerability frames. Not to mention, like, I guess it's faster than doing a roll is the point, or the fact that we can kind of stack them one after another. So you could use that to dodge effectively, but I mean, Trove's enemies literally just keep attacking you nonstop without giving you any chance to breathe. So I don't know if this ability is particularly useful, but whatever. So anyways, the secondary ability, which is the star that I mentioned earlier, or Singing Crystal and Crystal Pop. So the Singing Crystal throws a singing crystal onto the ground. Whenever a song is used to buff other nearby players, the area of effect around both the bard and the crystal, you know, what I mentioned with the ult, where if we end up doing this, it ends up buffing both of these things right here. And I mean, as you can see, we got the double stack, and then if we come out of it, we move a little bit slower. Did I get that right? Let me double check this. So our movement speed is at 173, and then if I move out of the cone, oh, it's still 173. Okay, so maybe it doesn't stack like I thought it did. I think it did with a certain ability, but maybe it doesn't. I'm sorry about that, guys. Anyways, your number one ability basically is going to end up doing that. Like, this is just to synergize. It doesn't do anything else. But then you can press it again to trigger Crystal Pop, which detonates the Singing Crystal with an overloaded amount of musical energy, causing it to deal 250% magic damage to enemies around it and destroying the Singing Crystal. After using the ability, Crystal Pop swaps back to Singing Crystal. So boop, it pops, and then you're just back to the number one ability. Yet another character that throws down a bomb. The thing is that I really don't like about it is that it's basically spending precious time to use the ability rather than just doing your basic attack. And the problem is that when you throw the crystal down, it doesn't actually do any damage or anything. So that's literally a 1 and wait for it 2 just to deal an additional 250% damage. Like, not really worth it, when if we just ignore that and keep doing our basic attack, we've already out damaged that star. So I mean, I guess ultimately it's not really meant to be used for damage. It's most of all just to use in tandem with your ultimate ability, right? So the ult, of course, has 4 different effects. So there's Epic Riff, which is starting the melody, as I mentioned previously, Jubilant Song, Peaceful Song, and Battle Song. So the Epic Riff, as I mentioned, starts the timer so that you can end up building up stacks. The Jubilant Song causes nearby allies to dance and gain 30% increased movement speed and 30 max energy. Buffs allies with a 50% chance to restore energy when dealing damage. Removes 5 melodies when used, but you can end up using it with 0 melody. That's going to end up being this first ability right here, which... Boop. If you use that like, this is really, really good for the Bard himself, and it's consistent. So you use his ult, and then you could use it again, and we've basically got constant movement speed. So we'll get into the ramifications of what that's going to end up doing for this guy if you are actually, you know, trying to farm, speed farm with him. So anyways, moving on to Peaceful Song, probably the most useless ability. Heals nearby allies by 12.5%. Dude, if it doesn't heal them full, it's not worth it, because that's just how Trove works. 12.5% of max health and buffs them with an 8% life gain when dealing damage. So you got 8% life steal, which not very good for most characters. Additionally, stuns nearby enemies for 0.5 seconds, which is ridiculously low. Removes 5 melody when used and lasts for 3 seconds. It's not good. That one's probably the worst one out of them. Battle Song, however, triggers an explosion around the Bard, dealing 600% magic damage to nearby enemies, and temporarily redirects aggro to the player for whatever reason. Buffs nearby allies with a 50% increased attack speed and 30 critical hit percent. Removes 5 melody when used. So that one's the effective one for combat. That's the one where, like I said, if you know, synergize that with like another group of players and stuff, you can end up potentially having that be a pretty good buff for your entire team. Of course, the only, like, when I'm talking about using these buffs, there's only 2 instances where I could come up with a reason to actually even do it, which would be super duper deep delves, bosses only, not normal enemies, god no, or leviathans. That's basically it. But again, the thing is, why would I bother going through all of this crap when if I ended up having a good magic set on like my Chloromancer or something like that, it would be more beneficial to the group than bothering with any of these buffs and stuff like that. And it's just, I want to see this guy increased, okay? Like, I need to see his damage numbers increased a bit. Even in terms of speed farming, he does not keep up. It's very underwhelming. And I hate to sound so overly critical, because I do actually really like the class. I think it's great that we've got a new character into the game, and the fact that he's a meme class is awesome. But he does not keep up as much as you would hope that he would. So anyways, moving on to the classroom ability. So the Bard has increased attack range, and Bard songs have increased effectiveness. So it's going to end up making your basic attack, you kind of see how it's shooting out really, really far. So that normally is not there. It normally doesn't end up shooting out that far. Does this also say Bard has increased attack range and Bard songs increase effectiveness? Oh, okay. So it does say that it has increased effectiveness on the class gem. That's interesting. So let's see if they have a good comparison of both of them. So The Jubilant song, for example, normally, so they don't have a side-by-side comparison, so I'll do this for you guys. So normally the movement speed buff is 30%. With the class gem, it boosts that up to 50%. So it's required if you're going to end up doing speed farming. We'll skip over the healing ability because it still is just not worth it, right? But the battle explosion, now check this. When you use the battle song, when it triggers, you end up doing 600% magic damage. Once you get the class gem, it'll actually deal 800% magic damage to nearby enemies. Buffs nearby allies, it basically increases their attack speed from 50%, and then with the class gem, 75%. And then the crit hit percentage goes up by 30 without the class gem, and 60% with the class gem. Crazy, dude. Then there's the subclass ability, which kind of sucks. It's not bad in theory, just the way that it explains it is pretty cool, but the functionality of it is just, it's not very good. So the subclass ability, personal song. Sing yourself a little song when you head into battle. When attacking, gain Jubilant, Peaceful, and Battle Song buffs in that order, one after another. Each lasts for 3 seconds with a 15-second cooldown. Increases effectiveness with subclass level. So basically, the higher the power rank we have on our bard, the more effective that is going to end up being. Right? Right. So the way that works is the Jubilant buff that you'll end up getting gains increased movement speed by 2%, 15% when you're at max level, which I guess would be a 35k bard, and it increases your max energy a little bit. The Peaceful one gives you 5% lifesteal at max level, and then the Battle Song gives you 2% attack speed, 15% at max level, and 2% crit hit, or 15% at max level. So it's not a bad subclass ability, but it's not really worth swapping out for other ones. I mean, it can end up being good because obviously you hear these buffs and they sound really good, but the buffs only last 3 seconds each, and they have a 15-second internal cooldown. So it's just, it's not really worth it. Anyways, that was the brunt of the patch. We still got a couple other things to end up going through here, but there's not that much else. So Smoky Delves, the Dusky Mount Dahad, or Dahade, or however you say it, the Wasp Dancer, I don't know. There's a new mount that has shown up in public and private delves. It doesn't really explain much else than that. Look for Dahade in delves filled with smoke. These only appear after the first shadowy vault. So it's just another stupid random, like, will you end up finding this area? Okay, it's RNG, and then will you end up actually getting them out? So it's just Trove's, typical RNG on RNG. So as far as I'm concerned, who cares? Is it tradable though? Let's find out. Dahade, the Whisperer. Oh, look, another horse. Well, it says it's tradable, so I guess cool, but that's probably going to be like millions and millions of flux just because of its rarity, not because of how cool it is. So the store is going to end up having 3 new packs. 2 packs, basically. Because what they're going to have is there's going to be the 1 pack for the Bard. Let me actually move over to the Geode Sanctuary while we're talking about this. There's going to be the Bard pack, right? But if you end up buying that pack, a 3rd pack will end up becoming available to you, where you can end up upgrading to what the 2nd pack normally is. So there's technically not really 3 different packs. It's just 1 pack and then an upgrade, basically. So the Bard packs are going to include a lot of things that are going to be in the Christology workbench, because Christology is getting a buff where you'll actually be able to level it up to skill level 300 instead of 250%. This was the normal maximum, but now we've actually moved on to Bard Mythologist or whatever, right? This is stupid, doesn't make any sense with the rest of the game. It's not coherent at all. It literally is just, hey, how can we make the Bard difficult as heck to craft? Well, let's throw it into its whole other category. Like, I've never seen an art. Like, why is the Bard earned through Geode Caves? It doesn't make any sense. But anyways, there's a whole bunch of things out of here. There's allies, there's costumes, all of them extremely expensive because they cost that new rare resource, Bardium, on top of everything else, obviously, which is really, really costly. But there's new costumes, there's new wings, there's even another Pegasus mount, which nobody asked for, but it's here, so whatever. Now, the cheapest Bard pack is going to end up giving you the Bard itself. It's going to give you the Wings of Song, Cubics, and Pretend Performer costumes that, again, are otherwise crafted out of here. The Root Beer and Wild Hog allies. That's the pack that I assume is going to be $20, $30. If they're keeping it in sync with all of the other class packs in the game, it's going to be $20, which will be worth it because of the amount of things that you get out of it. And then there's going to end up being another pack, which we've heard is going to end up being $100, which they have kind of inflated value here, but we'll get into that in a little bit. The pack itself is going to include the Bard and everything crafted out of this table here, as near as I can tell. So technically that's worth it. Like, you know what pack I'm buying. But it's also going to include 13,000 credits. So that is basically the equivalent of buying the $50 pack, or somewhere between the $50 and the $100 pack, but you're still getting all of this other stuff too. So it's a good value as far as Trove's store is concerned, I would argue, just because the amount of things that you end up getting out of it is, it saves you months of headaches. Like, you know, like obviously I'm gonna pick all that stuff up, and I'm excited to see the other Bard costumes because I've seen some of them and they seem pretty cool. Anyways, we're moving on to additional updates already. So added a new crafting tier to Christology. Yeah, we ended up talking about that. Bardium has been added to the Geode Caves. The Lunar Lunatic costume for the Bard has been added to the Shadowy Market. Right, sorry, I completely forgot that we actually do have this costume that you can buy for Despoiled Divinity, which, if you want a better look at this costume, you can just check out my Bard live stream where I ended up using this costume for the majority of it. And it's pretty cool. I like the Bard costume so far. You know, I don't have any complaints about the character. And I feel like his higher level costumes are actually really good. They kind of fit with the whole theme of the character very, very well. They also changed this. I don't know why they did this. This is the stupidest thing ever. So entrance depth in private delves will now be based on account performance in private delves, and no longer be based on current class performance in public delves. The entrance depth for public delves is still based on each character's performance in public delves. Okay, so first of all, nobody uses public delves, so what the heck are they talking about? Basically, they're making it so that if you end up going into a private portal now, what we would usually do is we would swap to a weaker character, and then we would do that so that we would bring our floor level down so that the difficulty wasn't so bad, right? Now you can't do that. Now you're just automatically gonna get thrown into higher tier delves. And it's stupid because guess what? I don't want to be in higher tier delves. This sucks because it makes it so that unless you end up having a group, private delves just become impossible for you if you've gotten to the end game, because it's always going to be throwing you into an area where literally none of the classes are useful save for the top delve classes. And let me tell you, the Bard is not a delve character. Whatever, you know, I obviously challenge delves are still unaffected. It's most of all if you're just doing private delves. It kind of sucks, especially because as more people end up joining your group in a private delve, it means that it's going to bring the difficulty up. And it's just, I don't know why they would do this. I think that's kind of weird because I like to use private delves to test things and do, you know, like my 35K series videos. Imagine if I was always thrown into depth 150, even when I was on like the boomerang. It would be embarrassing, dude. Anyways, whatever. So there's new trophies added to the Parrot Captain bosses in the delves, fixed a crash that could occur in Bomber Royale. Nobody plays Bomber Royale. Some collectibles have received minor appearance improvements. And that's pretty much it for the entire patch notes, guys. Overall, what do I think about the class? It's not good enough. I think that it's really cool as far as a class is concerned, and I'm not gonna, you know, what's the term? I'm not going to kiss a gift horse in the mouth. I will accept that there is a new class coming to the game. I've actually seen some people, some psychos who are actually mad that the Bard is in favor of them just reworking classes, which I find strange because we literally just got the rework to the Chloromancer. So they're clearly still doing reworks, but they just kind of shoved the Bard in on the side, you know? Personally though, as far as the class is concerned, it's okay for speed farming. It can be top 5 for sure. Definitely not top 3 because the damage fall off is ridiculously low. I would like to see the ultimate ability. Maybe we would slowly gain stacks over time, and then by doing the appropriate action, we would just build up more stacks at a time. or just make it so that you need a total of less stacks or something. I don't know. Generally, I just don't like this ultimate ability, the way that it's implemented. It's weird and complex, which is kind of cool, and I appreciate what they're trying to do with it, but the execution just doesn't work currently. Of course, it's all on the test server, so it's all subject to change, and hopefully we end up getting some good reworks before any of this ends up going live. So anyways, I'll have some other videos coming out soon where we're going to focus a lot more attention on the bard itself, me kind of explaining to you guys, okay, here's how all of the abilities work and stuff like that. Hopefully in a shorter time frame, because today it was all about the patch notes and going into mega detail with all of the things that are scheduled to come up with this update. Again, we don't have any release date, but if I had to guess, it's probably going to be somewhere around the time when Trove is coming in Nintendo Switch, which I don't know whether or not Trove, like, the thing is, I don't know if Trove is going to end up coming on the normal Nintendo Switch or the Switch Pro, because we already know that Nintendo's going to talk about the Switch Pro at E3 this year, which is going to be June 12th, I think, is when it starts. And then we've got like big announcements from Nintendo, Microsoft, and all that stuff. My point is that there is also some leaked information that the Switch Pro might release as early as September or October. And technically, Trove said that it's going to end up releasing in the summer. And September, I think, is the last month of summer as far as a release schedule is concerned. So we might be right down to the wire where Trove would end up releasing on the Nintendo Switch Pro. And my point is that I would expect to see the Bard before September for sure. We might even, who knows, we might get the Bard this month. I don't know. And I especially don't know how long it's going to take before it gets converted to console. But anyways, I don't mean to ramble about that. I already talked about all of this in my video talking about Trove coming to the Switch. Have a great day, guys. Really appreciate it. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have yourselves a fantastic day. Sayonara, and stay epic, gamers.